let's do a timeless one. I was thinking about the Easter season and thinking of just God's grace, God's gift, all of those things together. And I thought, let's do a timeless old classic. Amazing Grace, How Sweet the Sound. Seems like that would go along nicely with the theme. Why don't we stand up, and we'll sing to open this evening. This will be the only song that we'll do tonight. Amazing Grace, How Sweet the Sound that saved a wretch like me. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to hear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Though many dangers, toils, and snares I have already come, His grace has taught me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. And the last, when we've been there 10,000 years, bright shine as the sun. We've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. All right. Did you enjoy? Was the music this morning a blessing? Man, all the bells, all of the singing. Did the men's choir not sound just exceptional? It just sounded so good. Sterling was amazing. Yes, yes. We were talking about it. Yes, we were talking about it. You started singing men's choir almost from the very beginning, but not quite the very, very beginning, I think we were discussing. But indeed, you've seen men's choir over the years, like, made a lot of progress, huh? It sounded so good. So anyway, I just hope that was a blessing to you. And wasn't God's house full? Oh my goodness. So I tried to take a good scan, and I'll keep track of who was able to swing by and send them notes and send them text messages and keep in touch. There were some friends that I hadn't gotten to chat with in person since pre-COVID, and that was really, really fun to see some of the longtime friends that had been out. So anyway, hope that was a blessing to you as it was to me. What a great, great thing that God did this morning. So this evening, you can go ahead and have a seat. We are now 2 away from completion. So soak it in. It's about done. We are on lesson 8 this evening. And then next Sunday will be lesson 9, and then we'll have 10, and that'll be it. So it is wrapping up. So we'll go ahead and start it now. I guess, can you hit space on the computer, Victor, and start? I'll let you do that if that'll work. And we will be off and rolling this evening. Hope this has been a blessing to you as it has to me. Oh.
Since these things ring true to you as a wife, in the next session, we invite you to hear Sarah as she provides you with practical ways to apply respect to your husband. What Sarah says in session 8 about chairs, C-H-A-I-R-S, will ring as true to your husband as the acronym couple in Session 7 rang true to you. The challenge on this topic about respect toward a husband is that this subject sounds like a foreign language to many women. For most women, the culture of intimacy is all about love. For instance, not one movie ends with a very masculine hero embracing the rescued damsel and declaring, "I want to respect you the rest of my life." That is not what the man says to the woman at the end of the movie. Instead, he says, "I want to love you the rest of my life." Love is the mother tongue of women. But what is the mother tongue of the husband? Do you recall the research of Shawnee Feldhahn that I quoted in Session 1? In a random sample of 400 American males, she asked, would you rather be left alone and unloved in the world or be viewed as inadequate and disrespected by everyone? Over 80% of the men said they'd prefer to be left alone and unloved in the world. Men are not energized or motivated by the thought that others see them as inadequate and don't respect them. Is this because men are egotistical? No, God designed men with a need to be respected for who they are as human beings, just as a woman needs to be loved for who she is as a human being. The good news is that this truth empowers wives. The energizing cycle says respect motivates his love. Just as a husband's love motivates his wife to respect when he acts on the acronym couple, so a wife motivates her husband to love when she acts on the practical application of chairs. When a wife does the things that Sarah sets forth in Session 8, the spirit of the husband softens and he has a desire to connect with his wife. Some of what you are about to hear will sound counterintuitive and countercultural, but this is your husband's mother tongue. Talk to him in this mother tongue and he'll talk to you. Metaphorically speaking, Sarah is about to teach you a few vocabulary words in your husband's mother tongue. As for the workbook, I want you to pay close attention to how the acronym chairs and the acronym couple interface with each other. Truly, when a wife acts on the acronym chairs, her husband will respond by acting on the acronym couple. I explain why this is the case in the workbook. Find out why. Ready? Let's begin.
Okay, now women, it's our turn. So, what I'm about to share with you may feel foreign to you, but it is not alien to your husband or sons, and we need to be informed of this. I am burdened that women today think marriage is all about them, and if their needs are met, well, I'll be happy. And the reason I say that is I think I was guilty of it for so many years. But with the divorce rate still so prevalent, I keep thinking something must be missing. And I think, wouldn't it be exciting if we, as godly women, figured out what this missing ingredient was, and we began practicing in it our own lives, and we helped lower that divorce rate? Women are always wanting power and influence, and I think, wouldn't it be exciting to have power and influence, but to be biblical at the same time? This is the kind of power and influence we're talking about. When we first began this ministry, women were asking us, and they still ask us, what does respect look like? I think you're onto something, but what does it look like? And that's why we wrote the books, Motivating Your Man God's Way. There's a woman in Charlotte, North Carolina, whose marriage was literally saved by those two books. And since then, she has taken over 300 women through those books. And when the count was at 300, I asked Lisa, I said, Lisa, how many of those marriages are still intact? And she said 297 of them. Now there's a woman who let God change her heart and her marriage and is making a difference and is using her power and influence in a biblical way. Another woman called our office one day who had come across those books and shared with me how it had helped save her marriage. She shared with me that 2 years earlier, her husband had been caught in multiple acts of immorality. And in the last 2 years, they had been in Christian counseling. But she said to me, Sarah, in those 2 years of Christian counseling, no one ever used the words unconditional respect with me. She said, my husband was really making spiritual strides and was growing. But she said, I continued to be venomous with my words until I read that book. And then she shared with me just the past weekend before she had called me, she said, I had a situation where I was so upset with my husband about something and I was just ready to rip into him, and I thought, no, Emerson said, you can say whatever you need to say, just say it with respect. So I stopped, I changed my tone of voice, and I spoke respectfully, and then I walked out of the room. And then she said, my husband started following me into the other room, and he started loving on me, and he said, Andrea, you remembered the books. She said, how did you know? He said, I heard it in your voice. So women, if this is what the men are saying over and over again, we need to sit up and listen. They're not as expressive and as responsive as we are, but this is what they're saying. So remember, it's the Almighty God who's asking us to unconditionally respect them for who He's made them in His image, just as He's asking them to unconditionally love us for who He's made us in His image. So women, are you ready? Let's look at what these men said over and over. We're going to look at some of those Slavic words that Emerson mentioned. And remember, if you speak a little Slavic, it can enhance the romance. So let's start with conquest. Oh, that's such a Slavic word. Anyway, a man feels you're appreciating his pursuits and his desire to work and achieve, and therefore feels your respect when you tell him thanks for going to work every day. Now, does that mean every day you go, thanks for going to work today, thanks for going to work today? No, too much cake makes anybody sick. Ever so often, thank him for going to work. They do not have a choice. Your son will not have a choice. But saying thank you is so respectful to a man in that realm. Next, cheer his successes, whether in business or sports. We were cheering somebody on in high school, whether it was one person or whether it was the whole team. We are just natural cheerleaders. A man who was an acquaintance of Emerson's shared with him this story of how he had owned his own business and he had so looked forward to the day when he would be bought out. The day finally came. He could hardly wait to get home and tell his wife. When he came into the house, she was a little preoccupied, but then he got her attention and he said, honey, guess what? And she said, what? He said, it happened. What happened? They bought us out. She said, oh, that's nice. And she never asked him one word, not asked him anything about it, and went on doing what she was preoccupied with. He said to Emerson, I will never forget that day. He said, I felt so dishonored. I felt so disrespected. I thought, I'll just never share with her again. So women, if we don't cheer their successes, will we be there when they fail? As a pastor for so many years, doing so many weddings, Emerson would always use Ephesians 5:33 as his basis of his message, and he would always have these word pictures for the bride and the groom. And one that he gave the bride that I always loved was, he would say to her, when the whole world walks out on him, you come in cheering him on. I always loved that because we are natural cheerleaders. Who has the little cheerleading outfits when they're 3 and 4 years old? Girls. And lastly, under this, ask him to talk about his dreams, like you probably did when you were dating. Women, this is often what we admired and respected about them. I remember when Emerson and I were dating at Wheaton College, which seems like a zillion years ago. I can remember walking on front campus with him, holding hands, of course. And I remember the first day he shared a dream with me, and I went, really? And then a few weeks later, he had a new dream, and I said, really? And then one day he had another dream. I mean, I just was amazed at all these dreams this guy had. And I said, we're going to do that? And then we got married. And guess what? He continued to dream. But I started going, really? Really? And one day I said, honey, we're not going to do that, are we? And he looked at me and he said, Sarah, probably not. But please, just let me dream. That was the day I realized attitude and tone when talking about a dream can be very disrespectful and dishonoring. So women, learn from me. Could you ever trust God to let your husband live out a dream? I had a friend who did this and moved her family across the country with her husband. He wrote about it in a Christmas letter, how honored and respected he felt. She was his biggest cheerleader. A couple years after that, the dream died because of the economy. But guess who continued to be his cheerleader? My friend. But now guess who wrote about it? Her daughter, in her senior paper for high school, wrote about what her mom had done. and how her father had felt respected, and then what her mom had done after the dream had failed. When I received what this daughter had written, my first thought was, my friend has left her daughter a legacy that money could never buy. What kind of legacy are you leaving, women? Think about that. Not that you have to let him live out every dream, but again, what kind of legacy are you leaving? Hierarchy. Another Slavic word. A man feels you are appreciating his position as overseer, his desire to protect and provide and even die for you, and therefore feels respected when you really do look up to him for feeling responsible for you. I remember when my boys were growing up, just again, talking about what they were going to be when they grew up, and then as they continue to get older, this seriousness about what am I going to be? What am I going to do? There was a pressure there. We didn't put it on them. It's just there. It's there by God because of this feeling responsible. Also, remember when our oldest son, Jonathan, called home his freshman year in college about a major decision he was making that would affect his future. And he was seeking his dad's counsel. And then in that conversation, he said to his dad, "Dad, I just wish I was in the 5th grade again." His dad said, "The 5th grade? Why do you want to be in the 5th grade?" And he said, "Because in the 5th grade, all you had to do was read and play soccer and basketball." Again, talk about men feeling this pressure. Next, tell him you're deeply touched by the thought that he would die for you. I've told this story for many years, but I am always touched by it even as I share it because I learned so much about this when our son David was in college here in California, and we came out here to do a conference, and our daughter Joy was a senior in high school, and she came with us on her spring break. She stayed back in the hotel room to catch up on the 3-hour jet lag, and David joined us for the conference. Afterwards, we went back to the hotel room and tried to get in and couldn't get in, and Emerson heard the television up pretty loud, so he knocked really loud, and Joy did not come. And so he knocked again, and she still did not come. And then he realized this was a ground floor hotel room, and there was a sliding door, and he saw it was open a little bit. He came back, and he had pounded again. She still did not come to the door, and he looked at David and he said, "David, I'm going to get the manager. If anybody comes through that door, you nail him." I thought, whoa, this is serious. They didn't ask me to nail him. What I noticed that day about David, he didn't go, no, Dad, don't make me do that. He put his shoulders back and he said, "Okay, Dad." That was the day that I realized God had created my son to die for a woman. I knew Emerson would die for me, and I knew that about most men, but I guess I really hadn't realized that about my son. I also realized that day he was going to die for his sister. Now, if you told me that a few years earlier, I'm not for sure that I would have believed you. But that day, I realized he was going to die for his sister. Now, as you know, she was not dead. You've seen her on the video. You've seen her up here. She was dead to the world and wondered what all the commotion was about. So we did get in the room. And lastly, under hierarchy, praise his commitment to bring home the bacon. And I like to say here, women, whether it's a lot of bacon or it's a little bit of bacon, praise his commitment. I can only imagine right now with the job cuts and downsizing how much these simple affirmations mean to our guys when we thank them and praise their commitment. Now let's look at authority. Wow, there's another Slavic word. A man feels you are appreciating his power on your behalf, meaning his desire to be strong, to lead and make decisions, and therefore feels respected when you tell him he's strong as you squeeze his muscles. Ladies, squeeze your husband's arm right now. I guarantee you they all tightened up, didn't they? Go figure, it's gotta be symbolic. Because they all did it. I didn't tell everyone last night that I was gonna do this little thing and I wanted them to tighten up. No. Women, God has designed them to be strong for us. And when they do this, that is their way of saying, I wanna be there for you. I wanna be strong. I wanna help lead you. I will tell you that when my boys were 4 and 5, I did not tell them to march up to the bathroom and start doing this in front of the mirror. And as much as there is on weight training for women today, when I touch Joy's arm, she does not tighten up. So go figure. It's got to be there by God. And when you praise the good decisions and you minimize the criticisms of the poor ones, women, they know if it's a poor decision. This is a really, really good time to exercise the discipline of quietness. And then lastly, under authority, when you honor his authority in front of the kids and you differ in private. This shows huge respect. If you failed, begin again. I love Lamentations. It says, his compassions are new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. See it as a new day. And then I would remind you that little kids grow up really fast. And then they come through our book signing line and they say to us, this is what was going on in our home when I was growing up. My parents need to hear this message. Again, if you failed, just begin again and see it as a new day. You can start by seeking God's forgiveness, your children's forgiveness, and your husband's forgiveness. God will honor your humility. Your children will forgive you, whether they're little or whether they're grown. And your husband will feel respected and feel honored. And guess what, women? He won't need to talk about it for probably more than 2 minutes. Definitely not 2 hours. Hey, we really like that drop it and forget it when it benefits us, don't we? Yeah. What an honorable guy. After a conference one time, I had a woman come up to me with tears streaming down her face, telling me that she was in a very significant position with her husband in ministry. And when she said, Sarah, when you came to the section on authority, I came under such deep conviction because I have so dishonored my husband in our home. So at the end of the conference, she said to me, I turned to my newly married daughter of 3 weeks and I sought her forgiveness, and then I turned to my husband and sought his forgiveness, and I only have 2 kids to go. There was a woman who was not going to let any grass grow under her feet. I also received we received this email from a woman who said this. I recently read your book and wish it had been written 20 years ago. My husband and I have 3 grown sons. For the first time, I realized why they often reacted so negatively when I disrespected their dad. As I look back at times of verbal disrespect toward my husband, I now understand why they would visibly wince and come angrily to his defense. They understood what I did not. Respect is vital to men. I hope you'll explain to the women at your conferences that a woman's lack of respect toward her husband has negative effects not only on him, but on the other men in the house as well. I am making a point of praising and respecting my husband in front of our sons, and all 4 of them are standing taller. Those 2 women made a decision to see it as a new day and to leave a legacy to the next generation. Moving on to insight. A man feels you appreciate his perspective and his proposals or his desire to analyze and counsel, and therefore feels respected when you thank him for his advice and knowledge. And don't say you're always trying to fix me, but see it as there by God. Have you ever been with a girlfriend and you shared a problem with her and she started giving you a solution? And did you say to her, quit trying to fix me? I do not think that we as women ever say that to our girlfriends. You can honor your husband by letting him fix things. Number 2, and applaud his solution orientation. I loved it in what we thought was maybe an emergency situation in that hotel room here in California. I loved it when Emerson and David took over. We like it when they fix things around the house, don't we? But why is it we criticize them when they try to fix our problems? I have a deep concern about the male bashing that goes on in our society and, sadly enough, our church. I think we do it because we see them as so strong, and they've been laughing it off for years. But guess what, women? It's about our sons. And we need to see this as sin. So I'm on a crusade, and I hope you will join me, to stop the male bashing, especially within our church. And hopefully we can have an impact on our society. I will tell you that you will be more aware of male bashing after coming to this conference. So I'm asking you to use your power and your influence in conversations. And if male bashing begins, that you would step up to the plate and you would change the course of that conversation. If you can't change it, I'm asking that you would leave the conversation and not take part in it. Because we need to do something. We need to make a difference. Thank you. I hope the clapping means you're going to join me, right? Another thing I think is interesting along these lines is that we can have a TV program in this country with 4 or 5 women bashing men for an hour, but we could never have a television program with men bashing women. And we say things are equal? I don't think so. So I'll get off my soapbox now. Next, looking at relationship. We'll move on to that. A man feels you are appreciating and valuing his partnership and his pastimes, or his desire for a shoulder-to-shoulder friendship, and thus feels respected when you tell him you like him. Now, years ago, there was an ongoing tension in my relationship with Emerson. And we were in a conversation, and he looked at me and he said, Sarah, I know you love me, but I do not think you like me. And as I mentioned on the trailer for the Respectfully Yours study, he was right. I didn't like him, and I didn't like those children that he had given me. And I let him know. Now, let me tell you, if you ask my friends to tell you about me, I'm pretty sure most of them would tell you I'm very positive, I'm very upbeat, I see the glass half full and not half empty. But I was not being that way in my home. I had become very negative. Now, my friends didn't know it, but I will tell you I was becoming so negative, I was complaining about every crumb on the counter, every shoe from the front door to the back door, every candy wrapper left wherever, and every wet towel left on the floor or bed. I kept thinking, if they changed to be like me, we'd all be happy. But nobody was happy, not even me. About this time, I was getting ready to go away to visit my mom, and I was taking Joy with me, and Emerson was going to stay home with the boys. In that conversation with Emerson, I really felt like God was speaking to my heart, because remember, I was very aware of this tension in our relationship. So I asked God while I was gone, if he would continue speaking to me. And if you ask God to speak to you and you're willing to listen, he'll speak really loud and clear. So while I was away, he said to me, Sarah, you and Emerson did not get married because you said, I hate you and you hate me, so let's get married. No, nobody ever gets married because they say, I hate you and you hate me. Usually you get married because you're first friends. And Emerson and I were friends. And I had been very friendly when we were first married. I did not realize, but I had really become unfriendly in our home because I was doing all this complaining. So the Lord just spoke to my heart, and he said, Sarah, you go back home and you be that friend that Emerson married. So I saw it as a new day, and I was excited to go back home. When we got to the airport, he was there to greet us, and I said, so how was your time? He said, good. I said, did you miss me? And he said, we had so much fun when you were gone. He said, we played games, we built forts, we ate when we wanted to eat, we made the beds when we wanted to make the beds. I know you're laughing because you noticed that he didn't answer when I said, did you miss me? I still remember the pit in my stomach at that airport when he didn't answer that question. But I also was excited because it was a new day and I was going to begin again. During this time, a word picture came to me, and it was kind of like this. It was like the Lord said to me, when I get to heaven, that the Lord's probably not going to say to me, so Sarah, were you successful in changing everyone to be like you, oh self-righteous woman that you are? No, he's probably going to say to me, Sarah, how did you change to become like me? And that's my goal in life every day, is to be like Jesus. Do I fail? Oh, yes. Have I ever been negative since then? Oh, yes, I was this week. Do I go there? Sure, I go there, but I don't stay there anymore. I see it as sin. I get up and I begin again. One of the things that I've introduced into my relationship with Emerson is just using the phrase, I like you, because translated to mean, I like being your friend, and I respect you. I love it when Emerson sometimes gets an email from somebody, and a woman who says, I'm in this desperate situation, and he doesn't have time to respond right then. He says, I have 3 things I want you to do. First, for the next 6 weeks, I want you just to be friendly. The second thing I want you to do is be friendly. And the third thing, in case I haven't told you, is be friendly and get back with me in 6 weeks. So women, if you take nothing else home from this conference, or you want to know where to begin, start by being friendly. It's powerful. Next, do recreational activities with him or watch him do them. And might I add, doing these shoulder-to-shoulder activities without, and I said without always talking about the kids. Now, I thought when two people got together, you just normally talk. I mean, that's just where I'm coming from, that if you're with somebody, you would be talking. So anyway, Emerson and I were together one time, and we were talking, and he looked at me, and he lovingly said, Sarah, do you think we could get together sometime and not talk about the kids? And it was like, oh, wow. He does have another life. Now, I knew he didn't have anything against our kids. He was a great dad, not only to our kids, but to all the kids in the neighborhood. In fact, when the kids came to our door every single day, they didn't ask if my kids could come out and play. They asked if Mr. E could come out and play. He was the only dad in the neighborhood who played with the kids every single day. So I knew he didn't have anything against our kids or any kids in general. But that was the day, like I said, I realized, you know what, he does have another life. Maybe I need to not be focusing on the kids so much. Maybe I need to ask him what he's dreaming about. That could get a conversation going, right? But let me add, doing these shoulder-to-shoulder activities, as Emerson mentioned earlier, without talking at all. Now, I'm a slow learner, so it took me quite a few years to learn this. But when I saw the power of it, I decided one day that I'm going to test this out on our oldest son, Jonathan, who's a man of very few words. We were going on a family vacation. We had 5 different schedules, 3 different vehicles, and I was going to be riding with him in his truck. Now, I want you to know that I wished I had learned this shoulder-to-shoulder without talking in the 5th grade. Now, not when I was in the 5th grade, but when our son David was in the 5th grade. You see, my boys grew up with a mother who was always asking 20 questions. I was trying to get them to tell me what they were feeling, what had happened, what they were thinking, and they never quite got as excited about it as I did. But the reason I say I wished I'd learned it in the 5th grade was when our son David was in the 5th grade, I remember vividly picking him up the first day of school and saying, so David, how was your day? He said, good. I said, what'd you do? He said, nothing. I said, anything exciting happened? And he said, no. 2nd day of school, how was it, David? Good. 3rd day, 4th day. On the 5th day, Friday, I remember saying, so David, how was your day? He said, Mom, it's the same every day. If anything changes, I'll let you know. That's why I wished I'd learned it in the 5th grade. I really think I would have been a better mother to sons if I had just learned this shoulder to shoulder, right along, not always trying to have a conversation. But again, as I've been saying, it's always a new day. You can begin again. But back to my truck story. I want you to know that miracles still happen. I rode in that truck with Jonathan for 3.5 hours, and only 3 things were said. Should we turn here? Should we get gas? And should we turn on the air conditioning? I was determined to ride in this truck with him and not say anything. I didn't even need a notebook to write those 3 things down. I just want you to know, because there were so few of them. But anyway, when we arrived at our vacation destination, he did not turn to me and say, Mother, thank you so much for riding shoulder to shoulder with me. That just energized me. I felt so respected. No, he didn't say that. But guess what? It was one of the best family vacations we ever had, and I think just maybe I set the tone for it by just riding along with him and not having this agenda or thinking that I needed to make conversation. Now, what I didn't realize was that was really preparing me for something that I was going to do with him later on. After he graduated from college, he bought a little bank foreclosed home to fix up for resale, and he asked me if I would help him when I wasn't traveling. Now, he knows a good thing when he sees it. I am a handy-dandy farmer's girl from Indiana, and I can do quite a few things. So he, like I said, knew a good thing when he saw it. So I said, sure, I'd love to help you. But you know what I was most excited about, women? Was doing this with him shoulder to shoulder without thinking I had to have a conversation with him, but just being there with him to energize him to complete this project. But one day, I got a pleasant surprise, a gift that I did not expect, and that was this. I was up on the ladder, scraping the garage, when the plumber showed up. He just happened to go to our church. He sees me up on this ladder in my overalls, and he said, Jonathan, you have got your mom here helping you. How much does she cost? And he said, she's priceless. I mean, he didn't even take a breath. He said, she's priceless. Now, people, I want you to know that I said he's a man of few words. If you take out the contraction, that's 3 words. She is priceless. I want you to know that I kept those things, those 3 words, and I've pondered them in my heart for a very, very long time. That meant the world to me. But back to recreational activities. Can you enter into the things he likes? Like the things you probably did when you were dating. Remember how you wanted to be with him? You wanted to watch a game on TV with him, even if you didn't like sports. You liked to ride in that golf cart, even if you didn't golf. You liked to sit in a fishing boat with him, even if you thought that was the most if you thought that was the most boring thing because you absolutely cannot talk when you're fishing. Women, I know there are seasons of life. We all know that. But wouldn't it be exciting if ever so often you surprised your husband and you did one of those things that you used to do when you were dating, or that he's asked you many times to do with him, but he's now quit asking because you just poo-poo it and you say it's a waste of time? Well, I know a woman who did not really believe this shoulder-to-shoulder thing without talking was that powerful, but she wanted to test it out. So she told her husband she wanted to go hunting with him. Yes, after he recovered from a near heart attack, they planned this little hunting trip. She said, we had our deer blind, we took it, put it in our truck, we went to our destination. Now this woman talks faster than me and more than me. And she said to me, we put up the deer blind, we got in it, and for 2 hours, we said nothing, we did nothing, and we got nothing. And then she said, we took it down, we went back to the truck, and on the way back to the truck, her husband turned to her and he said, Roberta, that was awesome. We said nothing, we did nothing, we got nothing, are her thoughts? Yeah, ask Phil. It was awesome. And lastly, next, he feels respected when you encourage time alone for him. It does energize him to reconnect later. They don't want us to be there all the time doing all those activities, whether it's hunting, whether it's golfing, whether it's fishing, woodworking, whatever. It does energize them to have those alone times. So that's all for relationship. Now we're on to our last topic, which is sexuality. And I am passionate about this section on sexuality. Don't you think that's a pretty good word, passionate? A man feels respected when he knows you appreciate his passions and his pleasure, namely his sexual desires, and therefore feels respected when we initiate periodically. They love it, you could add that. Let me repeat that, women. When we initiate periodically, they love it. If you've never been the initiator, guess what? It's a new day. You can begin today. Next, respond more often. And might I have you write the word positively? They love it. Isn't it interesting, women, how we want them to have eyes for only us, but then we push them away? I have a growing concern for the number of women who want their men to have eyes for only them, but they don't do their part in making that easy. Women know before marriage that men are visually oriented, but somehow lose sight of it after marriage, no pun intended. I had a medical doctor come up to me after a conference and said to me, I work with women all day long who look their very best. But when I come home, my wife doesn't have her hair fixed, doesn't have any makeup on, doesn't have clothes on that are becoming. It wasn't like he was asking her to be dressed for a black tie dinner. But he said, I always notice that when she goes out with her friends, she always looks her best. He just said, I would feel respected. I would feel honored if she wanted to look her best for me. Now, women, I don't know what you did when you were dating, but he obviously was attracted to it. So think back. What did you do that made him attractive to you? Another concern I have is reflected in an interview with a TV personality whose husband had died a few years earlier, and she had now started dating. And this is what the interview said. Her newly acquired comfort with dating has yet to be shared by her 4th grade daughter. She asked me to promise that if I ever got remarried, I wouldn't have sex. And I assured her by saying, oh, don't worry, honey, once people get married, that's when they stop having sex. And then she said, just kidding, I'm just kidding. Well, I wasn't there, and I don't know if she was kidding, but when I read that, I thought, it's no joke. It's It's been said that the devil does everything he can to get us together before marriage and everything he can to get us apart after marriage. And I think he's winning the war. I think it's interesting how women want their emotional needs met after marriage, but somehow lose sight again of their husband's physiological needs. Women, have you ever thought about the fact that we have friends to help meet our emotional needs, but we are the only one that can meet this physiological need in our husband, or should be? Women, this isn't just about us. Remember, marriage is not just about us. He created us, male and female. Again, not wrong, just different. And lastly, under sexuality, a man feels respected when we let him acknowledge his sexual temptations without shaming him or making him feel shamed. Because most of us women don't struggle in this area like men do, we can just think this is no big deal. But women, God made them this way, at least the vast majority of them. Just as he made us with a need to talk for emotional release, he's made our husband and our sons with a physiological need for release. Just as most men can go a long time without talking, most women can go longer without sexual intimacy. And one day I was thinking how I could best express my burden about this, because I do think many men are suffering the most in their marriage in this area. And yes, there are women. We hear from you, and our hearts go out to you. I can't address every exception, but yes, I know there are women here today that are suffering in this area of their marriage. But along with my sadness over that TV personality interview that I just read you, was when a friend told me one day that she was in a small group of young, godly women, and the issue of sexual intimacy came up. She shared with me that this young, godly woman said, "I just told my husband I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, and I don't have the desire, so there." I thought, whoa. I was so grieved in my spirit. I thought, I didn't always feel like fixing my kids' lunch every day, especially when I wasn't hungry. But I did it because I knew they needed it. I had another medical doctor come up to me after a conference, thanking me profusely for sharing what I shared about this in this area. And then he said to me, "Sarah, keep sharing it, because every day I have young and older women in my office saying what this young woman said, and I share with them what you've said." He said, "Please keep sharing it, because it is an epidemic." And then I told him this personal story, and he said to me, "Sarah, you need to share that at the conference." So I share this story by orders of the doctor. I shared with him that I had just recently gone for my yearly physical, and I was meeting that day with the nurse practitioner. I'd met her a couple other times, but didn't really know her very well. And she asked me what I did, and I said, "Oh, my husband and I do marriage conferences around the country." And she said, "Oh, have I got a story for you?" Now remember, I didn't really know her. She said to me, "My husband and I only live about 20 minutes from my parents, and every weekend we usually stop by to see my mom and dad. But this past weekend, we were not going to stop by. So I called my mom and I said, 'Mom, I guess we're not going to be able to stop by this weekend.' And she said, 'Oh, why not?' She said, 'Oh, Mark's in a twit.' She said, 'Well, what's he in a twit about?' And she said, 'Well, I suppose it's because we haven't been sexually intimate for 6 or 7 days.' She said, 'Beth, you should be ashamed of yourself.' She said, 'Mother?' She said, 'Beth, why would you deprive him of something that takes such a short amount of time and makes him so happy?' She said, 'Mother?' And then she said to me, 'Sarah, my parents have been married for over 50 years, and I don't know anyone happier than my mom and dad.' I said, 'Beth, your father is married to one wise woman, and I'm so glad she shared her wisdom with you.' So, women, here's my analogy. What if your husband didn't talk to you for 3 days? What if he didn't talk to you for 3 weeks? What if he didn't talk to you for 3 months? What if he didn't talk to you for 3 years? I think you see what I'm trying to say here, and as that doctor said to me, research shows it's a huge issue and an epidemic. So women, if you're looking to show your husband respect or you just want to bless him, I'm sure he'd think this was a really good place to begin. And for you women who have figured this out, my hat goes off to you. You are a wise, wise woman. Women, we're done with the list. So as I said to the men, You could ask your husband if these things would make him feel respected. He might add some, he might delete some. Better yet, start trying some of them. As we finish up, I just want to remind you that Ephesians 5:33 is a command. And God says his commands are not burdensome. So why would he give us a command that he didn't think would work? And do you know, or do you remember that when you're given a command, you're either going to obey or you're going to disobey it? There's no neutrality. If you choose disobedience, it's a scary place to go. It's a scarier place to stay. If you choose to obey, even if your heart doesn't feel like it, God will honor your heart and he will honor your obedience. This really is a spiritual issue. It's not a crisis of marriage, it's a crisis of faith. And as Emerson says, who moves first? Don't you just hate the answer? The mature one moves first. So as an act of faith, I dare you this day to be the mature one and move first, because you can say with confidence, it's all about me. It's all about me doing what God's asking me to do. And again, trust me, God always honors obedience. Do what you would want your children to do with your instructions. Doesn't it just bless your heart when your children obey you? Think about what it does to your Heavenly Father's heart when you obey him. Don't ask your children to do something if you're not going to obey. In closing, my prayer for you is from Romans 15:13. And now may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you will overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. And hope means living in anticipation of what God is going to do. Have you ever thanked God for your circumstances? Start today by thanking him that he wants to do a new thing because it's a new day. And never, ever let go of hope. It's the only way to live.
I was trying to remember that last line. Thank God, today is a new day, and there's always hope. Was that the 3 lines? Thank the Lord, today's a new day, and there's always hope. Okay, got that down. Well, good evening to all. I'd like to say good evening to the Gonzaleses and good evening to Mr. RJ. You guys are the only ones that I see on the Facebook side of things. Hopefully you've had a wonderful, there we go. Hopefully you've had a wonderful Resurrection Sunday afternoon. I hope the music came out as well as possible over the live stream. I know it was glorious here in person. And hi to the folks who are on YouTube. I think there's a few there as well. God bless you all. Hope you have a wonderful evening. Again, we just finished series, or part number 8. So we have 9 and 10. And then we will be all done with this. So hopefully you found this engaging and interesting. Let's pray, and we'll close the live stream, and then we'll do some local discussion here before we close and take off. Dear Lord, love you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this wonderful Resurrection Sunday. Lord, thank you for working through us, your people. We love you. We love being utilized by you. Lord, each and every one of us have a burden for people that are in our lives. And Lord, may we, as an entire body, come around and embrace and pray and uphold and support and minister alongside those that need prayer and need encouragement and need those things. Lord, I pray that you would give us great wisdom as church members. And yes, even understanding the responsibility we have, Lord, to minister to those nearby us. And thank you for such a great victory that was this morning. Lord, as we go our separate ways, and we'll have a little discussion here in person, but as we all go our separate ways in just either now or just a few moments, I pray that we'd have a great upcoming week. And Lord, those who were able to make prayer meeting on Wednesday, pray that we'd have a wonderful time of prayer as we have been having. And God bless Tabernacle Baptist Church. Thank you for your love and that we get to serve you. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.